Thomas Avery had learned to live in the dark. For 2 years since the accident, the once brilliant tech millionaire had been blind, his world reduced to textures, echoes, and the quiet weight of other people's voices. At first he'd thought blindness would destroy him, but it had only taught him what sight had hidden. Truth had a sound. Lies, too. He could hear deceit now, the hesitation before a word, the forced smile in a tone. He had become a man who trusted only silence, and the one who spoke most in his silence was Judith. Judith Vale, his fiancée, had been by his side since before the crash. The world adored her, an elegant woman with perfect grace and sympathy that played beautifully in front of cameras. To everyone else, she was the picture of devotion. But to Thomas, her voice had begun to ring hollow like crystal with a hidden crack. She had changed after the accident, too calm, too careful, her laughter timed like an actor's cue. And sometimes late at night, when she thought he was asleep, he could hear her whispering on the phone, her tone low and urgent. He wanted to believe it was business. He wanted to believe in love. But blindness had taught him how dangerous belief could be. It was on a warm afternoon in late spring when the world shifted again. Thomas was in the garden of his estate, listening to the wind move through the roses. He had learned to map the world through sound, the fountain's rhythm, the bees' hum, the way sunlight felt warm on one cheek and cool on another. A soft voice interrupted his peace. "Mr. Avery?" He turned slightly. The voice was unfamiliar, young, feminine, uncertain, yes? "I'm sorry to disturb you," the girl said. "I'm Jada. I work with the new maintenance crew. I saw you walking alone and I wanted to ask if you're okay." He smiled faintly. "I'm used to it. The dark, I mean." There was a pause. Then carefully, "What if I told you I could make you see again?" Thomas froze. "Excuse me?" "I said," she repeated, her voice steadier now, "I can heal your eyes." He laughed softly, though it wasn't cruel. "That's a generous offer, Miss Jada, but my doctors—" "Your doctors don't know what I know," she said quickly. "It's not magic. It's medical. My mother worked with a foundation in Lagos testing a stem cell serum that regenerates damaged optic nerves. She died before it was approved." Thomas tilted his head. "And you have this serum?" "I have what's left of it," she said quietly. "And the proof it works," he frowned. "You understand how many people have made that promise to me in the past 2 years?" "I do. But none of them meant it like I do." Something in her tone, earnest, trembling with truth, cut through his skepticism. He gestured toward the chair opposite him. "Sit." She hesitated, then obeyed. "Tell me," he said. "Why offer this to me?" "Because someone doesn't want you to see again," she said softly. "And I need you to." The air changed. "Who?" "Your fiancée," Thomas stilled. "Judith?" Jada nodded, then remembered he couldn't see her. "Yes, Judith Vale." He laughed once, but it was bitter. "That's absurd." "No, sir," she said urgently. "I work part-time at her private clinic. I clean the lab rooms after hours. 2 weeks ago I overheard her and another doctor talking about your condition," she said. "As long as he stays blind, he stays mine." The word struck like a knife. Thomas rose slowly. "You're sure of what you heard?" "Yes, sir. And I've seen the vials, the ones that could have healed you." She ordered them destroyed. "But I kept one." Thomas's heart thundered. "Why would you risk that?" "Because she doesn't love you," Jada whispered. "She owns you." The wind picked up, rustling the roses, scattering petals across the stone path. Thomas stood there, blind but seeing clearer than he had in years. That night he couldn't sleep. Judith had returned from a dinner downtown, all perfume and sweetness. She kissed his cheek and said, "You were quiet today." "Just thinking," he replied. "About what?" "About what it means to trust someone you can't see." She laughed softly. "You trust me, don't you?" He smiled faintly. "More than you know." But as she left the room, he turned his head toward the faint creak of her footsteps, the subtle sound of her unlocking her phone. A message tone. A whisper. He heard everything now. He waited until midnight, then called Reeves, his oldest friend and former head of security. "I need you back," Thomas said. "You mean it?" Reeves sounded surprised. "After all this time?" "Yes, but this time we're not guarding assets. We're hunting truth." The next day, Jada met him in the study. Her hands trembled as she handed him a small vial glowing faintly blue under the sunlight. "This is it," she said. "The serum." He held it carefully. And you're certain it's safe? It was tested on patients in Africa, she said. Some regained sight after weeks. Others didn't, but none were harmed. He smiled. You understand how dangerous this could be? If you're wrong, I'm not wrong, she interrupted. I wouldn't lie to you. He nodded slowly. Then we'll try it. But not yet. First, I need to know what Judith is hiding. How? By pretending I still can't see even when I can. Jada looked confused. You mean? Yes, he said, a ghost of a grin touching his lips. If this serum works, no one will know. Not until I decide. Reeves arranged a secure lab in the lower wing of the estate. Over the next 3 days, Jada administered the serum carefully, 1 dose at a time. Each time, Thomas felt something, pressure, warmth, pain, but no light, until the 4th day. He awoke before dawn, the world around him gray and faint, like fog lifting after a long night. Shadows moved, shapes formed, and then, for the first time in years, he saw light. He turned his head and saw Jada asleep in the chair beside him. Exhaustion etched on her face. The vial rested empty on the table. She'd done it. He closed his eyes, tears streaming silently. When Jada woke, he whispered, I can see you. Her lips parted in shock. Then a smile bloomed so bright it felt like sunrise. It worked? It worked, she laughed, covering her mouth. Then we can stop her. We can show everyone? He shook his head. Not yet. She must never know I can see. Not until I find out how deep this goes. Later that day, Judith entered his room. She was perfect as ever, silk blouse, diamond earrings, her smile soft as honey. Good morning, my love, she said. How are we feeling? Thomas looked straight at her but kept his eyes unfocused. Still dark, he said. Poor thing, she cooed. You'll get used to it eventually. He smiled faintly. Maybe I already have. When she turned away, he saw her slip a vial from her purse. Clear liquid, identical to the serum Jada had used. Only this one was darker, thicker. Poison. She poured it into his tea and set it on the tray. Thomas's heart pounded. He kept his face neutral. Judith, would you join me for breakfast? Of course, she said sweetly. He lifted the cup to his lips, but before he drank, he said quietly, You know, it's strange. I can almost imagine your face right now. You're wearing the red lipstick, aren't you? She froze. How? He smiled. A lucky guess. He set the cup down untouched. When she left the room moments later, he whispered to the air. Game on. The morning after Judith's quiet attempt to poison him, Thomas Avery sat perfectly still in his study, pretending to be blind. He had done it many times before, but now, for the first time, he truly understood the power in pretending. The serum had worked. He could see again. His vision wasn't perfect. Colors still looked washed out and shapes blurred at the edges, but it was enough. Enough to watch. Enough to catch the woman who had fooled the world. Judith moved around him that morning as if choreographed, pouring coffee, opening blinds, kissing his cheek. Her grace was mechanical now that he could see it. Every motion practiced, every smile timed. How had he missed it before? How had he ever thought her love was real? When she left the room, her perfume lingered like smoke. The same scent he'd once associated with safety now smelled like danger. As soon as her heels faded down the hall, Thomas reached for the intercom. Jada? I'm here, came her soft reply. Come to the study. A few minutes later, she appeared, wiping her hands on her work apron, her expression cautious. Is she gone? She asked. For now, he said. She tried again this morning. Jada's eyes widened. With poison? He nodded. I saw her pour it. The words hit her like a shock. Then we have to go to the police. No, Thomas said firmly. Not yet. If we accuse her now, she'll hide everything she's been doing. I need to know why. I need to know what she's protecting. Jada hesitated. You think there's more? I don't think, he said quietly. I know, he stood, testing his legs. The sunlight from the window framed his figure. No longer the helpless blind man, but the calculating visionary he once was. She's working with someone. We find that person and we end this. For the next few days, Thomas played his part, still blind, still dependent. Judith remained sweet and attentive, the doting fiancée the world believed her to be. But now Thomas could read her face. He saw every flicker of irritation when he didn't drink his tea, every glance toward her phone, every shadow that crossed her smile, and behind her perfect calm, he saw fear. Meanwhile, Jada worked in silence, slipping through the estate unnoticed. She was the invisible pair of eyes Thomas trusted most. Together they began piecing together Judith's secret life. Late-night phone calls, strange invoices, a locked cabinet in her private study. One night, when Judith left for a charity gala, Thomas handed Jada the spare keycard to the study. "Find out what's in that cabinet," he said. Her fingers trembled as she took it. "If she catches me." "She won't, she's not expecting anyone to see." The study was dark and cold, lit only by the soft blue glow of Judith's computer monitor. Jada slipped inside, closing the door behind her. The cabinet was tall metal with a digital lock. She pressed the keycard against the sensor, beep. The lock clicked open. Inside were folders, vials, and a black leather notebook embossed with gold initials. J.V. Jada flipped it open. Notes, dates, medical terms, but one page stopped her cold. Subject, T. Avery. Progress, stable. Condition, maintain blindness for control. Her stomach dropped. The next page showed a chart, dosages, experimental compounds, and the note. Administer diluted sedative daily to ensure compliance. Sedative, she whispered. The T. Then she saw the final line. Assets transfer to joint trust upon marriage. That's why Judith wanted him blind. To control him, to inherit everything the moment they wed. But something else was tucked inside the folder. A letter. It wasn't Judith's handwriting. Phase 2 ready. Patient unaware. Once blindness permanent, proceed with mental conditioning. Dr. Kelwin. Jada's heart pounded. There's someone else. She took photos of every page, then carefully replaced the folder and slipped out. By the time she returned to the garden, Thomas was waiting. She handed him her phone, showing him the images. He read in silence, his jaw tightening. So it's true. She's been drugging you for months, Jada said. That's why you never got better. And this Dr. Kelwin, he's been helping her. Thomas nodded slowly. He's the same surgeon who handled my post-accident treatments. Jada frowned. Then he knows everything about your condition. Yes, Thomas said grimly. And about the money. He stood and looked out at the dark horizon. Tomorrow we give them the illusion they've won. The next evening, Judith hosted an intimate dinner at the estate for a few investors and her dear friend, Dr. Kelwin. She had insisted Thomas attend, though he pretended reluctance. He entered with his walking cane, sunglasses still hiding the truth in his eyes. The doctor, a tall man with steel-gray hair, stood as he approached. Thomas, Kelwin said warmly, you look well. Do I? Thomas replied evenly. Judith laughed lightly. He's still getting used to everything. Aren't you, darling? Yes, Thomas said with a faint smile. Everything looks different lately. He could see the faint twitch in her jaw at his choice of words. During dinner, Judith poured the drinks herself, making sure his glass was full. Thomas accepted it, swirling the amber liquid under the candlelight. To new beginnings, she said, raising her glass. To truth, he replied. When she clinked her glass against his, he noticed the faintest flicker of unease in her eyes. Halfway through the meal, he set his glass down untouched. Judith, would you mind bringing me my medication? I left it upstairs. She nodded quickly. Of course, love. The moment she left, Thomas leaned forward. Dr. Kelwin, he said quietly, you can drop the act. The doctor froze. You think I don't know? Thomas continued. About the serum you suppressed, the sedatives, the falsified test results? Kelwin's face drained of color. How? Thomas smiled coldly. I can see again. The doctor's breath caught. That's impossible. Not if someone smarter than you made it possible. Jada appeared from the doorway holding her phone with the camera recording. Smile for the camera, doctor. Kelwin's expression twisted. You have no idea what you're doing. Oh, I do, Thomas said. You and Judith have been feeding off me like vultures. But tonight the world gets to watch you choke on it. Kelwin lunged for the phone, but Thomas grabbed his arm, pinning him to the wall with surprising strength. You took my sight? You will not take my freedom. Footsteps echoed, Judith's heels clicking fast down the hall. Thomas? She called. What's going on? She entered the room, saw the scene, and froze. Her voice came out small. You can see. He turned to her, eyes cold and clear. Yes, and what I see now disgusts me. Her mask crumbled in an instant. You don't understand. I did this for us, for your protection. My protection? He said, his voice rising. You poisoned me. You lied to me. You kept me blind so you could steal everything I built. Judith's composure snapped. You were weak. I made you relevant again. Without me, you'd be nothing but a broken man stumbling in the dark. Thomas stepped closer. I'd rather be blind forever than see the world the way you do. Kelwin tried to run, but Reeves and 2 security guards blocked the exit. Jada held the phone steady, capturing every word. Judith realized too late that the entire scene was being streamed live to the company's private boardroom. Carter's investors, executives, lawyers, all watching. Judith's face twisted in horror. You planned this? Yes, Thomas said calmly. Every word. The doctor was arrested on the spot. Judith screamed as security led her away, her perfect hair disheveled, her voice echoing down the marble hall. You'll regret this, Thomas. You'll die alone. When the doors finally closed, the house fell silent again. Thomas exhaled slowly. It's over. Jada lowered her phone, trembling. You did it. He turned to her, eyes softening. No, we did. Later that night, Thomas stood on the balcony overlooking the city. He could see everything, the skyline, the stars, the faint reflection of his own face. For the first time, he truly saw the world not as a man who had regained sight, but as someone who understood its value. Jada joined him quietly. Do you regret it? She asked. He smiled faintly. No, I regret trusting the wrong person, but not seeing the right one. Her eyes lifted to meet his, hesitant. What happens now? Now? He looked out at the dawn breaking over the horizon. Now I live in the light again. A month after Judith's arrest, the Avery estate stood quiet for the first time in years. The air no longer carried the perfume of deceit, only the scent of morning coffee and new beginnings. Thomas Avery walked slowly through his garden, the same garden where he'd once wandered blind, guided only by sound and memory. Now the sunlight painted everything in gold. He could finally see the world Jada had described to him so many times. The shimmer of the fountain, the roses leaning in the breeze, the delicate veins on every petal. It was beautiful. But it was also a reminder. Beauty could hide poison too. Reeves had retired after the scandal, though he still called every week to check in. Dr. Kelwin was behind bars, his medical license revoked, his reputation obliterated. Judith had tried to plead insanity, but her recorded confession made that impossible. She'd been sentenced to 10 years, though the tabloid said she still wrote letters to Thomas from her cell. He never read them, and Jada, the girl who had given him back his eyes, now worked full-time at Avery Research, the medical foundation he'd launched after the trial. She had turned from a cleaning worker into the face of a revolution in regenerative science, but in all her new confidence, she never lost her humility. She still greeted the janitors by name, still carried her mother's old locket under her shirt, still spoke softly when she said, Mr. Avery, even though he'd told her a dozen times. It's Thomas. That morning, he found her in the lab, hunched over a microscope. Her braids were tied back and the light from the window outlined her in gold. You're here early, he said. She looked up, smiling faintly. You too. Old habits die hard? He chuckled. Can't sleep when there's work to do? She leaned against the counter. You mean rebuilding an empire? I mean trying to build something honest for once, he said quietly. Her smile softened. You already are. He looked at her for a long moment. You know, when I was blind, I thought sight was the only thing I'd lost, but now I realize I lost myself too. The moment you showed me the truth, I found both again. She lowered her eyes. You give me too much credit. No, he said gently. You don't give yourself enough. That afternoon, Thomas called a press conference in the city, his first public appearance since regaining his sight. The world had waited months for this moment, speculating endlessly about his health, his wealth, his future. When he stepped onto the stage, flashes erupted from a sea of cameras. He stood tall, wearing a simple gray suit, no sunglasses, no mask. His eyes, once clouded with pain, were now clear and sharp. Good afternoon, he began, his voice calm but strong. Many of you know my story. You know what I lost, Emma, and what I regained. But what you don't know is that the greatest gift I received wasn't sight. It was perspective, he paused, letting the words settle. I built an empire that valued profit over people. And because of that, I surrounded myself with liars who told me only what I wanted to hear. My blindness wasn't an accident. It was a consequence. But one person, someone who owed me nothing and saw me as more than a man to pity. She saw me as someone worth saving, the crowd murmured. He smiled faintly. Her name is Jada. In the front row, Jada froze, her eyes wide. She's the reason I can see again. The reason you can all look at me and believe in second chances. This foundation we're launching today, the Horizon Program, will fund vision restoration and neuroregenerative research around the world. Because no one deserves to live in darkness when there's someone brave enough to bring light. Applause thundered through the hall. Reporters shouted questions, but Thomas simply stepped back and gestured to Jada. If you want to understand what hope looks like, talk to her. That evening, after the crowd had gone, they stood together on the rooftop of the foundation building, watching the city glow beneath them. Jada's voice was quiet. You didn't have to do that. Now say my name like that. Yes, I did, he said simply. The world should know who you are, she smiled faintly. You could have taken all the credit. No one would have questioned it. I've had enough of living behind lies, he said. The truth suits me better. The wind tugged at her hair, and for a moment the silence between them felt full. Not awkward, but comfortable. Do you ever think about her? She asked suddenly. He didn't pretend not to understand. Judith? Jada nodded, he sighed. Sometimes. Not because I miss her, but because I pity her. She couldn't see what mattered even when she had perfect vision. Jada looked down. And what matters now? He turned toward her, eyes soft. This honesty, second chances. People who tell you the truth even when it's hard to hear. She met his gaze, her breath catching. And what if they fall for you too? He smiled sadly. Then I hope they never stop being honest about that either. The silence stretched, fragile, tender, electric. Then Jada stepped back with a soft laugh. You're impossible, you know that? Comes with being reborn, he said lightly. But peace never lasts forever. A week later, an envelope arrived at the foundation with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, Judith in her prison uniform smiling faintly. On the back, in neat handwriting, were the words, You can't kill what you created. Jada found the letter first. When she showed it to Thomas, his expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened slightly. She still has someone on the outside, he said. You think she's planning something? She's always planning something. He looked out the window, the city's lights reflected in his eyes. But this time we're ready. Days passed. The investigation uncovered remnants of Kelwin's network, private investors, stolen research, unregistered clinics. It seemed the web extended farther than anyone imagined. But this time Thomas wasn't just a survivor. He was a strategist. He funded raids, exposed fake labs, freed patients who had been kept as test subjects. And through it all, Jada stood beside him, his partner in truth, his anchor in the chaos. One evening, as they left a courthouse after another victory, reporters surrounded them. One shouted, Mr. Avery, are you and Miss Jada partners in More Than Science? The crowd laughed. Cameras flashed. Thomas paused, then smiled slightly. We're partners in vision, he said. The rest of the story is still being written. Jada looked up at him, blushing but proud. For once, she didn't hide. Months turned into a year. The Horizon program expanded across continents, restoring sight to hundreds. Jada became its public face, giving speeches, training new researchers and mentoring young women from underprivileged communities. One morning, as the board celebrated another success, Thomas stood apart from the crowd watching her speak. She had grown into her own light, confident, eloquent, unstoppable. When she finished, she walked over, laughing breathlessly. We did it, he smiled. You did it. I just followed your voice. She tilted her head. Funny. That's what you used to say when you couldn't see. And maybe it's still true, he said softly. You led me out of the dark, Jada. I don't intend to go back. Her eyes softened. Then stay in the light with me. He hesitated, then reached for her hand. I already am. Later that night, they returned to the garden where everything began, where she had first whispered, I can heal your eyes. The fountain glimmered under the moonlight. The roses swayed red and white. Thomas stood beside her, gazing at the same spot he once couldn't see. When I was blind, he said quietly, I thought the world ended where my darkness began. But now I know. Sometimes you have to lose everything to understand what's worth seeing. Jada smiled. And what do you see now? He turned toward her. You, her breath caught. That's a dangerous thing to say, Mr. Avery. He grinned. Then maybe it's worth the risk. They stood there, two souls who had found light not in perfection but in truth. The wind carried the faint scent of roses as Thomas took her hand gently. You didn't just heal my eyes, Jada. You healed the part of me that forgot how to see good in people. She blinked back tears. Then maybe we both healed something. They looked at each other for a long time, the night quiet except for the whisper of water and the distant hum of the city. For once, neither of them felt like running or hiding. The darkness that had once defined his world was gone, replaced not by blinding light, but by something softer, something human. Hope. Epilogue. 1 year later, a press headline flashed across international news. The Horizon program cures 1,000th patient. Founder Thomas Avery and Dr. Jada Okafor celebrate historic milestone. The photo showed them standing together. Smiling equals. In the corner of the image, almost hidden, was a small note scrawled in pen on a bulletin board behind them. Truth heals more than medicine ever will.